Hi bead friends, we're back with a new tutorial. Today we will learn how to make these fun and easy bracelets with macrame technique. We will be using our letter beads to spell out any word or name you'd like, and I've made them in a variety of colors as you can see. For today's project you will be needing 40 inches of nylon thread 1 millimeter wide, 1.5 meters, so 3.5 feet of Slon thread, letters to spell out the word that you'd like. My letters are made in plastic and they're 6 millimeters in width, and round Miyuki Round size 8. You will need about 10, and then 3 grams of Miyuki Round beads in size 11. This is the color 451, so gunmetal. It's beautiful. Then you will need a super glue like Attak to glue your ends to be able to put the beads on the thread. And then I have our thread burner, or a lighter if you don't have a thread burner, scissors, lastly our macrame board. Cut your nylon thread in half, and on one of the pieces string 4 round size 8 beads, the letters to compose the word that you've picked, and another 4 round size 8 Miyuki beads. This will be the base on which we will work. Hook your thread to your board on both sides, and to give it more tension I make the string go around and hook it to the next 2 sliders. Do it on both sides so that your base is nice and firm. The number of round 8 beads that you have on each side of your word depends on the length of your word. For words long 6 words or 6 letters or less, you will be adding 4 beads on each side. If you have a longer word than 6, you can subtract a bead and put only 3 or 2 round beads on each side, like I've done with Namaste. Namaste is longer, so I've only put 3 beads. And if I'm making a sentence like C'est la vie, I've actually put no beads on each side because the sentence is very long. And then I've used actually a round 8 bead to separate the words so that it would be easier to read the sentence. So you have to pick and choose depending on the word or name that you're making. Now we can start working. So take our Slon thread, pass it under our base, make the 2 ends match, and find the center of this thread. Once you've found the center of the thread with the pin, pin it to your macrame board. And we can start knotting. We will be using our flat knot. So make a loop on your right thread. Cross the thread with your other thread. Pass it under the base and come out from under the loop you've made on the right side. Pull your threads both together to close the knot. And repeat on the other side. So loop on the left side this time. You see how my beads are on the bottom because we won't be using them right now. Then cross your thread with the one from the loop. Go under your base. And then come out from under the loop you've made on the other side. Pull both threads tightly. Don't take in your beads. And close the knot. So you've made the first set of knots. You will have to continue this way to make approximately 1.5 inches of knots for the first part of your bracelet. So if you want, you can take your pin to remember which side you're making your loop on and keep track. So the loop on the right, cross with your thread, go under the base, under the knot of the loop, under the loop. No beads. And pull tightly. Switch your pin to the other side and continue this way. I've made an inch of knots, which is more than enough to make my bracelet. A little trick: if you lose track or you're not using the pin and you don't remember which side you've made your loop, you can look at the threads. One will be coming out from under and one will come out from the top. The one coming out from the top is the side from which you've last made your loop. So I've last made my loop on my left side, and I will have to start then with my right. Also, the inch of knots is made again for words that are 6 or less letters. For my bracelets, when I've made the C'est la vie, I've made a smaller piece of knotting at the beginning, and I've actually didn't put any round 8 beads at the beginning. So you have to decide these two things depending on which word you're actually making and how long it is, because it will decide how big your bracelet will come out. So now we can start using our beads. So take the first round 8 bead and put it on top against your knots, and then take out your size 11 round beads. I've already glued the ends of my Slon and made them nice and thick. I will use my scissors to cut the point off and make a point. So I will cut it to an angle diagonally so that it will be easier to put my beads on the thread. I'll do it to both threads. So I'll place 2 size 11 beads on each Slon thread. 1 and 2. You see how with the glue it's really easy to put them on. Make them go to the top. Do the same thing on the other side. The first beads are a bit difficult because the glue could have made some thickening of the thread. Here you go. And now we're ready to knot just like before. So we will be knotting. We said I had done the last one on the left side, so I will make the first one on the right side. Loop, same knot that we were making before. I'll just have these beads on top, no problem. Go under the base and out from the loop and pull. Your knot will be formed under the size 8 bead. Hold tightly and make the second knot immediately after the first one, because the first knot will tend to open up. So you always have to make knots in couples, in pairs. Pull tightly. Make sure your first knot is closed before you tighten the second one. And let's repeat with the second 8 bead. So on top the 8 bead, 2 smaller size 11 beads on each thread. Make them go to the top of the thread. Same thing on the other side. And then knot. So first my right side, like before. So making them in couples, you always start with the same side. So right. And left. As you can see, my first knot has come undone, so I pull it tightly. Pull it tightly before I close the second one. And then I can go on. So second, third bead, 2 beads on each thread. Then cross. And knot the third thread as well. Making sure that the first knot doesn't come undone. I want to show you closer up. Let's repeat for the last 8 bead. So on top, 2 beads for each thread. And then we knot right side and left side. You see how my first knot is coming undone, so I pull it tight. If the first knot isn't pulled tight, you can't close the second one. Perfect. And we've done the first part with the size 8. You can squish them and push them towards the top so that they come nicely and tightly wound on our base, and then we can go on with the letters. Now we have to start working with the letter beads. So place 7 size 11 beads on each Slon thread. Make them go to the top, and like before, we will be making our flat knots. So first, my right thread makes a loop, go under and through the loop, and pull tightly. Again, the first loop has to be tight for you to be able to pull the second one over it. And when you pull, your letter has to be flat and your beads will have to go on each side of the letter. If you pull too much, it will turn around. Instead, it has to lie flat and pull. And let's repeat with each letter. So 7 beads on each side. See how my thread has ruined its point, so I just cut it again. You have more than enough. I've placed again 7 beads on each thread, and then I'll start knotting after the letter. Loop under the thread and pull tightly. Make sure your letter lays flat and that you don't pull too tightly, otherwise it won't fit in the loop of beads you're making around it. And second knot. If the first one comes undone, tighten it before making the second one. And repeat with all the letters that compose your word. I finished my letters, and now I have to make the same work that I made at the beginning of the bracelet with my round size 8 beads. So I've placed 2 beads on each thread, and I'm going to knot them after the size 8 bead like before. one, and then on the other side, the second knot. And I'll repeat for the next 3 size 8 beads, or how many you have on your base. Once you're done with the size 8 beads, you will need to redo the inch of knotting without any beads of the beginning. So once again, start with your left side, make a hoop, right side, sorry. Go through, under, just like you've done all this time, with or without beads. And remember to use your pin if you need it, to remind you which side you're making your loop on. So go on and knot the inch that you need. Once you've finished your knots, we have to burn the ends of these 2 Slon cords. So I'll use my thread burner. If you don't have it, you can actually use a lighter. Just be very careful because this thread burns quickly. 1, and the second one. I also keep my batteries low on purpose so that I don't burn through this thread too quickly. So it's actually taking this long because of that. But it gives me more precision. Once I've done that, we have to detach our bracelet from the board and switch it around to the other side. Hook it on the shortest end, so horizontally to our board, centered on our board, like this. And then we turn it around, and on the other side, we have to block the ends on each side. They have to be in the same height, same slides, and just slide it together in the 2 ends like this. Then take your second 1mm thread. Once you've pinned your bracelet to the board, pass your other nylon 1mm thread under your 2 threads that you've just pinned. Pin it center to the board. So you'll have to fold it in half to find the 2 ends. And then we will be knotting these 2 threads on the base, on the new base. So loop, under. We're making a closure for our bracelet. Pull tightly. And then again, you will need to make around 8 or 10 knots for the 1/2 inch of knots that you will need for your closure. This thread is bigger, so you will need less knots actually than the smaller one, obviously. Pull tightly. Until you've reached the length that you want. So it's 1/2 inch. So you can see here my 1/2 inch of knots. I pull tightly, and then once again with my thread burner, I will burn these threads. This thread burns quicker than the other one, so be careful. And there you go. Now I'll finish off my ends with my thread burner better. And then we have to unhook the bracelet from the board. So just detach the two ends, make them slide to open it up. Be careful not to make them slide out of the closure we've just made. And then make it slide off the board. Here we are. So my bracelet is very big right now. I have to pull the two ends to close it up. And now the difficult part is finding the right measure for our bracelet. So the important thing is putting it on your hand to the point where your thumb begins, and it has to be able to pass through this point. So I'll tighten it up because mine is slightly loose. I can have it smaller, like this. You have to find the right combination of the two measurements because it has to go through your thumb, but then when you pull it tight, you don't want these strings to be too long. So let's say that it has to be as tight as possible around your thumb or in the hand. Once you got it like that, this is the good measurement. Pull it off without getting it bigger. And then you have to make sure that the two ends are equal length. So you can see it from here that I have a really long length here and I have none other. So I'll keep the same length and just have the closure slide on both threads so that I can even them out as such. And now we can actually close these two threads. So first things first, this is the measurement of your bracelet when it's widest. So the threads that we will be closing, we'll try to keep as short as possible because once you actually pull tight your bracelet around your wrist, they will become longer. So you want them to actually be as short as possible right now so that they don't become too long once you have it on. So make a knot, a normal knot, and I'll leave more or less half an inch, not more. Pull tightly. So you're making a knot. Do the same thing on the other side, making sure to leave the same amount of thread than with the first thread. So check it out here. Keep the first one as an example and pull it tight. Yeah, more or less we're there. And then you will need 2 size 8 beads. Of the same color you've used already. So I've placed a size 8 on each thread. And now I'll have to close it up. So I like to make a double knot on this side of the thread. So I go around twice my finger, once and twice. And then I slide it off my finger, pull the thread through the loops I've just made. And the important thing in this step is that the knot has to close close by to the bead that you've just placed on your thread. So while I'm closing the knot, I'm pushing it towards the size 8 bead that I want to encase. Like this, and just pull. And here you go. And then you burn this thread right after the knot. And you do the same thing on the other side. So I've placed the bead on the thread already. We had made the first knot, now we'll make the second knot, which is double. If you make it close to your bead, it's easier to close it. See how I slide it and I'm pulling constantly the other thread to get it to the right spot, and then I pull. Here you go. Burn it, and we're done. So you're all done. I hope you've liked the tutorial. If you have questions and comments, you can leave them below. As always, please make sure to sign up to our channel and click the bell below to be always up to date on the new tutorials coming up. You can find the kits for all of our bracelets with all the words and sentences on our shop. You can also find the kits with only the beads and not the words, so that you can actually buy your letters aside and then buy just the bead, like the pink kit, the blue kit, the red kit, to make your bracelet with the word of your choice or your name. As always, you will find everything on our site, that is www.happybead.it. In the section video tutorials, you can find all of our video tutorials and all the kits for this bracelet and the previous projects. You can also follow us on Instagram as Happy Bead Milano, or on Facebook as Happy Bead La Fabbrica delle Perline. I'll see you next time. Thank you.